The past few weeks, I have been thinking a lot about my LOTRO playtime, and honestly, sometimes even think about LOTRO more than I have actually played the game, which is kind of crazy. So I have a few things that I need to share as I tell you how I feel about the game in its current state. First off, the point of this video is to not be all down in the dumps regarding LOTRO, rather it is an explanation of my lack of playtime recently and a shift in my content focus. That said, LOTRO does suffer from some serious issues and just parts of the game that I believe I have a philosophical disagreement with, especially in regards to development of things. Largely, this does deal with the infamous LOTRO endgame, but it is not just endgame itself. It also has to do with the systems LOTRO has that do happen to be largely for endgame. These systems just honestly push me away from the game, and I think that is the root of many of my dislikes regarding the game LOTRO. And I repeat this many times, but I really do believe that content is king in LOTRO, as in the game has great content that I want to play and I want to enjoy. It is what I think LOTRO actually does best, from the world building for the content to the quest design to the stories told, including that of the Lord of the Rings, that story. I think that is what excels in LOTRO, and that is what I just have a ton of fun with. And with how much fun I have playing LOTRO, especially solo, I also want to enjoy endgame group content. I will even admit that I do in fact find LOTRO's instances and boss mechanics and all this such to be quite fun. However, that is still exactly content. Outside of that, to progress in endgame, we have to deal with LOTRO's reward and progression systems. Even while leveling, we have to deal with LOTRO's character progression systems. And another thing is that these systems have actually actively discouraged me from leveling multiple characters past a certain point in the game. And I ultimately consider this to be a big problem for LOTRO. I can confidently say that I prefer the new legendary item system over the old one, at least while leveling. But I think that even has many issues with traceries and enhancement runes that does need to be improved upon. Maybe because I'm a little bit jaded from playing the game for so long and having the old system, the new system also feels kind of unlegendary to me with the constant replacing of traceries and the such. The endgame progression also with the LIs, it just feels off, and I believe there's a disconnect with development in the system and what the player base, the people who actually play LOTRO, want out of LIs. And I think this is evidenced by the latest beta build for update 32 and the amount of disapproval from players that this has spawned. That also brings up the currently in beta reward track that looks honestly lackluster at best. And to top all of that off, there's just so much RNG randomness with the new system that a lot of should be upgrades are often not upgrades and up being useless, and then supposed upgrades just then feel bad. Virtue traits are probably the least annoying progression system in LOTRO to me, yet virtues, I think they can still be annoying and really for me just plain unexciting, and they are yet another system you have to deal with. And moving on to clash traits, while it is true that I hold a personal grudge against the clash trait point system, it is just another system on top of a game that is already crowded with systems that you have to make sure you do specific things for in the game to develop your character while you level up, instead of having systems that naturally progress with your character as you have fun leveling and doing whatever content. These systems, they really just pile together to drain my energy and excitement to play the game, which I think obviously is not a good thing. And we haven't even gotten to the endgame systems yet, where I feel like LOTRO loses me a lot more. While I have a tendency to play endgame content in MMOs, at some point after my return to endgame in late 2020 I realized I had to just not engage with endgame progression if I were to healthily continue playing LOTRO and making LOTRO content on this channel even. With Gundabad, I almost think of it as falling into the trap again. I fell into this rotation of repeating content over and over while I'm trying to improve my character, but the reality was that after a while, I was not enjoying the content itself anymore. I was just getting frustrated with the endgame systems. I was just playing through it to upgrade my character. And I honestly think gearing is boring right now at the level cap in LOTRO. Armor and the focus on essences do not motivate me to acquire them. I don't want to get new gear. And the barter currency system with embers, that actually feels like a giant pile of potential, but with barely any of that potential actually realized in-game. To make matters worse, in early January, a sweeping change to the Ember's emote system was announced due to some of the most severe backlash regarding any announcement in LOTRO that I think I have ever seen. Standing Stone Games reverted their plans while stating they would utilize feedback to work on improving these proposed changes, and that they are still in fact planning on changing things. And all of that is to not even mention loot boxes. I honestly think that these have to be big money makers or something for SSG, because it is such a strongly reviled system by not only the LOTRO community, but just in gaming in general nowadays. I just don't really see how else they can still be in the game if they don't make big money for SSG. In fact, some of the biggest issues with the proposed changes to the Ember's emotes were not the actual changes, but they were a result of the just existence of loot boxes and their pay-to-win elements that they have. Earlier, I mentioned there was a disconnect between the development of LOTRO and its players, and I think these proposed Ember changes was another strong example of this. Another issue I have is LOTRO Endgame is very repetitive. It's not hard to see this being a difficult issue to resolve from the development side when an expansion launches with only 2 3-man instances, and then we have the 6-man instance I think a month later and a raid coming 3 months later. But it's another aspect of in-game content in LOTRO that does not make me want to participate in its progression, just running the same thing over and over and over again. I also tend to end up thinking a lot about LOTRO's past and scaling content that we have. As an endgame player, you are given very little reason to play LOTRO scaling content where there happens to be tons of instances. And on top of that, with some upcoming legendary item changes coming in Update 32, there will be even less reason because you at least used to be able to get some good traceries from these instances. And I also think the featured system, a lot of potential there, but it's another thing that feels underutilized. Although, I must admit, there is a bit of bad timing as the Update 32, the latest beta build for that, did include an update to the featured instance system for the first time in what I honestly think is way too long of a time period. Still, I don't think the changes in the beta will resolve any of the repetitive content issues, and it's no guarantee that the featured instance system will actually be actively updated as we get more updates in the game. And with what content we do have at endgame, instance locks prevent more frequent runs of instances, especially at higher tiers, which I have not found to be a good thing for the game, especially when considering the relatively small number of instances. If you only have 3 instances and you can run them only so many times per week, you just end up running out of stuff to do, and it really ends up feeling like you have to do the maximum number of these instances in whatever time period. Now it's weekly instead of daily. But ultimately, all of this with Endgame and its systems very easily lead to burnout. In fact, by mid-December, just a little bit over a month after the Gundabad expansion launch, I was getting burnt out on endgame content, and as I mentioned, all these systems, and unexciting systems at that, were getting more annoying than anything. This has actually been so bad that I can't help but get a little bit of a disgusted feeling when I think about Gundabad, which I think is insane considering I really did enjoy the questing and leveling and story content there. But even by mid-February, I just don't care at all to finish the Legacy of Durn or get back to doing anything Gundabad related, because it just doesn't sound good at all to me. I don't care about it right now. And after the long-winded story here, this is why I have been so slow to get back to LOTRO this year. It took me nearly 2 weeks since getting back from winter break to even do anything with the game. You'll seen I didn't have content on this channel during that period, and quite a few videos that I had planned were either put on hold or even scrapped. So yeah, this has not been the best start of the year for me and LOTRO, or for my channel even. A strict rule that I tend to follow with my content is to not make videos if I am not having fun. Nobody would want to watch me be bored as I cover something, and forcing myself to make videos that I'm not excited about would have a negative spiraling effect, and it would just be really bad long term. So with that, there was definitely a lack of content for me to start the year. But the good news is there is light at the end of this tunnel. I had a really fun play session and stream beginning my preparations for the Angle of Mitheithel. This was completely disconnected from many of the issues that I have covered in this video. I also, after that, had a set of 3 videos that were surprisingly successful for my channel. The one on new stables and troll shots shined a light on the more fundamental enjoyment of the game world, while the video where I explored LOTRO's new website for way too long, I am honestly just surprised that got to even a quarter of its current views. And what all of this has showed me is that you all, like the viewers, could enjoy what I would describe as a more relaxed take on LOTRO. So what is the point of all of this in this video? Well, I want to tell you that there probably won't be major changes with my channel and future content, but I will be working to reconnect myself to what I most enjoy in LOTRO and in gaming. This does mean that I might have more variety on my channel coming up, and I honestly will likely not play and cover endgame content in LOTRO quite as much, similar to what I have discussed in my endgame and LOTRO mini-series videos if you're interested in those. That said, one of my favorite things in LOTRO is running group content, which is like a big part of endgame content, and I really enjoy that with my kin on Anor, the Mithril League. I've said this many times before, but it is true that I would not play on Anor without them. So while I do expect to participate in kin events there, and that will inevitably result in endgame LOTRO content that I will run, I will have to be careful to not overexert myself. And while this may not bode well for my contribution to like higher tier content attempts if we do that, I also do not plan to spend too much extra effort chasing rewards, grinding, or really doing much of anything outside of the group content itself. For the time being, I expect that I will be taking an extended break from the level 140 endgame content in LOTRO, and I'm honestly not sure if I will run the Gundabad raid or even 6-man instance. I have not run that yet. Perhaps update 33 in the future could be a good time to reevaluate, but until then I will focus on a more relaxed LOTRO approach. I do expect to continue preparing for and eventually playing through Mitheithel, even though my time is running out for that, and I might even pick back up on Treebeard for some more low-level content. And finally, as you all may have seen in a recent stream a couple of days ago, I do expect to continue level 120 quest content and even group raid content on my Warden on Anor. So, at the end of this video, I do want to thank you all for sticking with me throughout this period. Without viewer support, returning from breaks like this may not be possible at all, and I hope you'll not only enjoy this video, but I hope you can also look forward to the future with me. If you have any thoughts, please do share them in the comments. I know I don't always reply because sometimes I honestly just get too many comments, which is, hey, a good thing, but I do read all of the comments on my videos, and they are always appreciated. And with that, I hope you all enjoyed listening to what I think of LOTRO right now, and if you did, please consider liking and subscribing for more, or becoming a channel member to support the content, and thanks for watching, everyone.